us now Elissa Thursfield, an employment lawyer from Gamlin's Law in Shrill. Elissa, good morning.
Good morning.
Take the politics out of it for the moment and just sort of treat this as an employment case, if you like. I've been wondering, would I be working if I'd been alleged to have been involved in lockdown gatherings? I'm not sure that I would.
No, I mean, if this was an internal HR investigation, I think we'd be seeing more conclusions, a bit more finger pointing, and yes, probably some very serious disciplinary action being taken afterwards.
Of course, there may well be. In fact, I mean, it's expected, isn't it, that's how the Prime Minister will react. But there will be changes in number 10. Can he just do that?
So the Prime Minister, ultimately, he's the boss, he's the leader there. I suspect that there are people who are charged with things like, managing the culture and any HR processes within there. So we would expect, once the police have done their investigation and once HR have taken things further, because we understand this is limited so that it doesn't prejudice any HR investigations or police investigations, that we may well see some significant changes. When you read the report, there's comments in there about how number 10 has grown. It's almost like a small government department now, and that it's sort of outgrown its management structure and that needs to change.
Yeah, and knowing what you know about how HR and management structures ought to work, what's your impression of the state of things in number 10 at the moment?
It's poor, to be honest, and it's not what you expect. Everybody turns to the government for an example of what to do, and some of the comments about staff wanting to raise concerns but at times unable to felt that they could do so, excessive consumption of alcohol, little thought given at times to what was happening, and failures of leadership. There's a big job to be done in there.
Yeah, the fact that people felt that they couldn't speak out, and that always points to a rotten culture often, doesn't it?
Yes, that's really concerning to me, that people feel that they can't raise concerns at work. That's an absolute core for, the most basic culture at work is that if there's something wrong, that people can raise it. And if that can't happen at the very top, then some serious change is needed.
And in terms of hiring and firing, because the expectation was that others would lose their jobs as a result of this. It works slightly differently, doesn't it? In government hiring and firing, people just tend to lose their positions without the sort of process you might get in other companies. Could you? I mean, I don't know whether that is still acceptable in this day.
People can lose their positions, but I think in government what that means is people often, that means a loss of job. There are people employed within number 10. What this report doesn't tell us is where these failings of leadership have come, whether it is people in government or whether it is people employed working in number 10 in senior positions. So I suspect that's going to come out in the further investigations, and that we'd look to see in terms of any HR outcomes. Who's walking away from number 10. I think that'll tell us a lot.
Yeah. Would people often expect to be able to work on while the police were conducting an investigation around their behaviour, Elissa, or would some sort of gardening leave be more normal?
I mean, just because the police are investigating something doesn't automatically mean that someone should be taken away from the workplace. So if someone were to be suspended pending an investigation, that's not a disciplinary act, and it would need to be with full pay. Now, you need to have a very good reason to suspend somebody, and if it's so that a fair investigation can be undertaken, so that evidence isn't going to be tainted or prejudiced, then you've got a reason to remove them from the premises. However, if it's just a suspicion that they might have done something wrong, that isn't in itself enough to suspend, which that could be classed as potentially a breach of contract. So just because the police are investigating, that doesn't necessarily mean that the HR processes mirror that. They're two separate processes, they're two separate standards of proof, and the police could well come to one outcome and the internal HR could come to another.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Elissa Thursfield from Gamlin's Law in Shrill.